for GNC, New York, Virginia, North Carolina, Florida, Southeast region. And I've been doing the Agents of Change Ball for the last 3 years with the invitation from Penelope here. Because I wanted representation for GNC at the Agents of Change, and to make sure that there was more inclusion for GNC folks and that they got it right in terms of what the category actually calls for. So we're going to go into a little bit about that education today and answer any questions that you have about the category, about its visibility, and we're just going to have a nice little chat. So I'm going to pass it to, yeah, is that not working?
Oh, well.
You can use it. Yeah, because you can. Yeah, I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hi, I am Stella Bradshaw 007, formerly Gulf Coast Overseer for the House of Del Cor. This is also my 3rd year of Agents of Change, invited by Rikka Milan. I am Gulf Coast of the Year, Southern Awards of the Year. Yeah, I travel region to region, state to state. I am the first person to walk GNC Best Dress in mainstream ballroom. My categories: best dress, evening gown, foot iron bag, and I plan to venture into some other things as well. But yes, brought in to my first Creating Change as a host because it was being held in New Orleans. And since then, I was brought in last year as a co-producer for the Agents of Change Ball by the grace of Rikka and Penelope. I've been so grateful for this experience and to be able to connect with other GNC individuals with the work that we all do in mainstream ballroom. So yeah, that's me.
So I am Siren West. Been in ballroom for about 10 years now. I walk Transman Rodents, Transman Sex Iron, Transman Body, and now All American Runway Beginners. I came on board with Rikka, Stella, and Riante, and everybody that we have, like maybe around
2022 or 3, yeah.
So
2 or 3.
it was more so of I'm an advocate in general for the trans community. Heard the conversation about GNC. A lot of people weren't educated on it. Jumped on the panel, connected with them. It was like, let's make this a thing. So that's kind of how I came on board. I am the only person on the coalition that is not currently walking in GNC categories. Once I get my foot in the door for runway, I will probably switch over to GNC runway. As sex iron is my category, probably do GNC sex iron. But for right now, it's just really just smooth sailing, trying to do the work, trying to get as many people understanding how to judge the category so that we can just kind of get this more and more pushed for the mainstream. I think the biggest challenge is really just keeping people with an open mind, challenging what they know the norms of ballroom to currently be, and saying, hey, like this is how we've done it, but we can do it this way too. So it's definitely a pleasure, and this is my first year doing Creating Change. So I was invited, so yeah, thank you.
And although we're all a part of the GNC Advocacy Coalition, which I will show you all who's a part of that on this next slide. All right, I have to use this. There we go. That's everybody who's on the coalition right now. We are just a band of people who care about GNC and advocate for its visibility in ballroom. We're not paid. We, do this because either we identify ourselves or, and or we also care about the community and its visibility and inclusion. And we're just passionate and we're just advocating on our own. So, we do this work because we're passionate about it. And we sometimes have long, late nights discussing this stuff online with folks who have a lot of questions or have a lot of misunderstandings about it. So we've put together, this slideshow is actually not something we put together for this. It's actually something that we put together to educate the different regions around the country and actually internationally now as well. Because folks will start to see us speaking and they'll ask us, hey, can you come and talk to my group here in Peru, because we're trying to wrap our brains around the differences between non-binary and gender non-conforming and what it is in the kiki scene versus in mainstream. And so we kind of come on and clear things up. And it's really great because a lot of people will show up to those spaces and they'll translate for us if they're mainly Spanish speakers, and like it's all just like a community effort. Again, like nobody's paid to do this. We just really try to like support each other and give the information that people are asking for. So that's how all this happened. It was very organic. And so part of the conversation today can also translate to like how do you build coalition and how do you create change in different areas, kind of using what we've done almost as an example. So, you know, this is what was done in Ballroom around GNC, but, you know, it could also be something you apply to something else in the queer community that you're trying to change. So GNC and Ballroom in its present form began in Orlando, Florida in March 2022. I want to be really clear, this is Ballroom mainstream, right? In the Kiki scene, which is like, it's like the youth, it's like a little more anarchy, they play around a little bit more. They started doing GNC in 2015, and it was mainly about identity. It was about whoever didn't feel like they had a lane to walk in as like a femme queen or a trans man or a female figure or male figure, but they identified as non-binary. They didn't feel like they fit into a category, so they made a GNC category for them to walk. Ours is a little bit different in mainstream. We're going to clarify what that is. But this was the very first that we know of, like awards ball that was mainstream that had a GNC category. And myself and India 007, the day before this ball, we had there was a House Lives Matter meeting, and we met with leadership in that space, and they carved out a moment for us to talk about GNC. And for myself, I was invited by my house father, Rikka Milan, to go into this space and talk about it. I didn't even actually know that there was going to be another GNC advocate in the room. We met for the first time when we both were like, oh, we're both going to talk about GNC. Cool, like let's like sit next to each other and team up and have the conversation with everybody. So we sat down. And when they gave us the space, you know, our kind of approach to it was, hey, you know, we're not trying to change Ballroom. We're trying to help you see something that's already in Ballroom and, you know, apply it in a more intentional way. And so let's have a conversation about this. What can this look like? And that was always our approach, was working with leadership to try to define what this could be, to fit into what the standards of mainstream Ballroom already are. Because we don't want to come in and just be like, you know, we're just going to mess with your culture, right? We're going to come in and we're going to work with your culture to see that you've actually already had this category there for years and years and years, just it's been called something else, or people have fit themselves into a mold of male figure or female figure because they had to, because there was no other lane, yet they were expressing themselves in a very GNC way, and sometimes got chopped for it, right? So the very next day was the Modern Marvelous Ball. It was an awards ball in Florida, and it was several folks that walked, India 007, myself, Mayura Escada, Lexi West. We walked GNC Face. Lexi won. I'll play a little brief clip maybe of it, if y'all are interested in just seeing the moment, because I mean, this is history, right? This is like starting the history of GNC. I'm gonna fast forward a little bit, it's a long video. I'm actually just gonna fast forward to Mayura. And the category called for having a mirror. That was it. We had to have a mirror as part of our look. And so this is back when we didn't really have standards yet. We were just figuring it out. And it was a moment. We had people come up and where they were taking photos of us afterwards. They're like, all right, we see what you're doing. We see you showed up, right? But we had to keep building from there because we had a lot of questions. Judges were, you know, asking, well, like, how do we judge this? Like, what does this mean? What is this? Because, you know, when we look at a femme queen, we're looking for a very particular look. And, you know, you all have very unique looks to you. So, like, what is this? So from here, we really continue to try to define what is this, right? What does that need to look like? Okay, I'm gonna pass the mic, yeah.
I just want to point out, during that time, like Rikka said, we didn't have, you know, a rubric or anything for them to judge us off of. So at that point, that's when we all realized that in order for us to be able to compete, there needs to be some sort of structure that they can judge us from. They have a rubric that they judge female figures from. They have a rubric that they judge male figures from, or trans men or trans women. We didn't have that rubric. So that's what pushed us to get together to create that standard of what we teach today, so that other individuals had the opportunity without just going out there blindly and not knowing, what the judges were going to be looking for.
And Stella actually also walked this ball.
Yes.
We hadn't quite met yet, and there was an open tall best dressed category. Do you want to just say a few words about what happened?
Yes. So this is a picture. If you guys want to pass it around, you can pass it around. But this was me at that ball. It was open to all best dress. And my house father, neither did I, have the idea of what the judges were gonna, do on the panel. And I'll pull up the clip one day and we'll add it to the slide. But at the back of the runway, the judges was like 10 cents, 10 cents, 10 cents. And as I got further down the runway, I got halfway. Snooki, who was the commentator, well-known commentator, looked and said, "Uh-oh," and realized I had a full beard. And Snooki looked at the panel and then looked at me and said, "Okay." And then when I got closer to the panel, they all chopped me. It was a moment that pushed me to come back, but it was also an opportunity for individuals to see what a GNC person can do. Because from the back of the runway, they thought I was a female figure. Because yeah, I was a femme queen. Because on the video, you can't tell, but that ball actually had a runway probably longer than, it was longer than the one we had last night. So when you're at the back of the runway, the judges can't really see that far. They just can see glittery things and it looks like it's right. And
all these lights.
And you have all those lights, and you have lights facing them, lights facing the stage, so they necessarily couldn't see. But that is when I met Prince, who was already connected with Rikka, who had already been in the meeting the prior day. And Prince said, "Oh, I think you should connect with us and join us because we're trying to start something for GNC." I said yes, and ever since, here we are.
Yeah, I think one of y'all can take this, like the next one. Yeah.
Sure, why not? So, GNC is not the same label in Ballroom as it is outside of Ballroom. Outside, GNC can be an identity and can be expressed in any way. Inside Ballroom, anyone of any identity can walk as long as you intentionally express a non-traditional mixture of feminine and masculine clothing. It is not about physical androgyny and confusion. It is about clothing only, not hair or makeup. So, a lot of the times, when we are trying to find and establish ourselves in Ballroom, it's almost like you're fitting yourself into a box, so you cling to what it is that you know, and that's you, right? So that was one of the biggest things that we had, and it's still one of the things that we deal with this particular category, is the separation of identity expression in Ballroom and outside of Ballroom. That topic alone is what allowed us to create that standard, because when the judges say, well, what are we judging? Well, we're trying to chop this person because they don't look GNC. But ask yourself, is there really a definition of what a GNC person looks like? It comes in multiple facets. So because of that, we had to take away from, okay, we can't judge the individual for how they look, but what can we judge? We can judge their clothing. In fashion, you have clothes that are for men, you have clothes that are for women. We can judge that. But we also didn't want to put people in a box and say, well, be androgynous, come 50-50, because then that's not fair either. What if you lean more to the masculine? You don't want to put that much on them. That's feminine. So that's the percentage now. The percentage is up to you, but it has to be a mixture. So that conversation is what kind of opened the doors for us to have like a rubric, really like kind of set us apart. So it made the conversation easier, something that was easier to explain to the judges. So.
Now, I will throw this out there. There have been, I think there still are, non-binary categories. And people,
Mostly internationally.
and yeah, mainly internationally, but there are non-binary categories. And we chose not to opt into that because we can never tell a person what they are or who they are. And we can't judge your identity. We can only judge what you present, your representation. And as Siren was saying about the percentage, we all came to the agreement that it's not always about what you wear, it's how it looks on you. Because everyone can tell, like I wear mixed clothing, men and women clothing, but I'm smaller in size. Something that may look very masculine on me may look feminine on Rikka. And you have to be very intentional about the things that you put on your body and how it looks to someone else when you put it on your body. I can wear a crop button down with a blazer. Someone may think it's masculine. Someone may think it's feminine. So just being aware of those things when you are cultivating your look and your style. Because the person that's on the opposite side, you leave what you present in their hands, and it's to their discretion.
It takes a lot of self-awareness, body awareness for yourself. So like, I have a very hourglass figure, so I can't wear certain things, or it may look super, super feminine on me, even if it's a masculine article of clothing, right? You have to make choices for your own body type and know yourself so that the judges can see it. They need to be able to see the masculine and feminine mixture and what you're looking at. And like, you can go risky, and we're gonna show you a couple risky examples in a second. You can go risky, but like, you may get chopped by a judge who's like, that's not GNC, we don't see the mixture. Especially as the judges start really learning what this category is about, that's gonna happen more and more. So we wanted to just show some examples of the mixed masculine and feminine in some celebrity styles, some collections over the years. I'm gonna let Stella talk a little bit about some of the examples up there.
So Janelle Monáe is actually non-binary, and she's well known and very outspoken about her identity. She was one of the first individuals I pulled because this look from the Met Gala was a spot-on definition for us to show people what that looks like in the mainstream, not in ballroom, but in the mainstream industry. Zendaya, of course, we know she is, always going to be iconic in whatever she does. But this particular look, and this is actually at the same Met Gala, that they honored tailoring and style, black style. So the suits were very dominant, but like the bell bottoms and the hats that were in a more feminine way gave that mixture. Harry Styles is also, I believe, is non-binary. Yeah. But all of these individuals are non-binary. Lil Nas X wearing Robert One, and Harry Styles, I don't know who he wore for that. That was a different Met Gala. But these are all expressions of what a mixture can look like. And if you look, everything looks completely different on every person. The top that Harry Styles have on, it's a feminine top, but it still looks masculine. Versus if Janelle Monáe or Zendaya wear it, it may just look completely feminine. And then we move down to collections, brands that actually create designs that we feel are very gender non-conforming. Schiaparelli, which actually happens to be the brand I work for, created this look, but in any demographic, a suit has always been considered very masculine, because at one point women couldn't wear suits. They were only allowed to wear blouses and skirts. So to have a nice double-breasted suit with this elaborate lapel and collar that goes around to show a feminine gesture to that look is what creates this mixture. And then Robert One, who created this trench coat gown. It's a crushed patent leather trench coat gown. And One side you see the trench coat, the other side you see a corseted gown. Now, if he was to put that corset or that trench coat completely on, it would be completely masculine from the top up. But he played with symmetry, he played with design, and created something where just at the top you know it's a mixture of both. Mason Margiela, this actually was very iconic, this collection, because Pat McGrath used a method for makeup where the models, the female models, looked like their skin was glass. So that's how this came about. But a very tight corset attached to a trouser, which corset has always been known for women as an undergarment. But you add a masculine trouser to it, now you have a mixture of something of masculine and feminine. And last but not least, Tom Brown, who also created Janelle Monáe's look for the Met Gala, always creates gender non-conforming looks, whether it's men with these elaborate masculine gowns, or if it's something simple like this for ready to wear. Okay? Yes.
Why no Billy Porter pictures?
So, we have not had any Billy Porter pictures. Well, no, we had it before.
We did show some at one
Yeah,
time.
so what we do is we usually change, we change pictures out based on what comes out currently, but we did have the Billy Porter, Golden Globes image where he had the, black, yes, the black tuxedo with the ball gown at the bottom.
Now I think it's on exhibit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on it. Some of the outfits are actually on an exhibit. I don't recall where, but yeah.
It was at the Met for a while, actually, yeah. And like Jonathan Van Ness from Queer Eye does a lot of GNC looks sometimes too, so yeah. There's a lot of different people you can swap out. Here's a few in Ballroom. So that's me actually in a take on a Janelle Monáe look. From a red carpet look that she had several years ago. And what I did was to emphasize the kind of more mass features. She had like a wider pant leg with like a more soft feminine pant leg, so I did like a tapered pant. And she also wore a heel, but I put more like masculine shoes to it. Rayon Stella Bradshaw, we're going to talk a little more in depth about later with Face, wearing kind of like a structured suit top and lace leggings on the bottom. You want to talk about your look, Stella?
Yes. So, funny enough, this is actually a repeat of another look. I just changed the bottom. This designer, she's based in Dallas, Texas. So she has a gown, the same exact print from her collection, and I wore the jacket with the gown at one ball. And because I loved the design so much, I came back and said, can I wear something else? And she gave me the corset bodysuit with the trouser, which is very wide leg, very feminine. And all I did is add a regular necktie and a button-down shirt to give my masculine aspect. And yeah, that was, it was 2080. Hat inspiration, which was not necessarily masculine and feminine. It came from what is it? Dr. Seuss. It came from Dr. Seuss. The trees, yes. So that's where the hat came from. I tend to find, i.e., I am a wardrobe stylist. So I tend to find inspiration from everything. Just like last night, people asked me about my hat. I literally made that hat right before the ball, but I knew that I wanted to do something that was different, and it was actually two beanies sewed together to make it longer. And then I just pulled it down, scrunched it down to make it, a fashionable piece. But yes, that's essentially what my look was, and yeah.
And Afro's look there is a runway look. So we got best dressed, Face, best dressed, runway. And which could also be bizarre because Afro is an amazing GNC bizarre from Brazil and just unstoppable in New York. So we had to bring Afro onto the coalition. Like they were already doing so much amazing work. And there's a lot of steampunk elements to this, and the steampunk is the masculine piece that comes out, because there's a lot of like more feminine, like there's a heel, right, and there's leggings, and there's like a little bit of a skirt and a corset, but then you've got these like kind of shoulder armor and the hats stacked, right, so these top hats with the goggles, like those are very, very masculine, so it's a really great runway mixed look.
But also I'm sorry, I'm like, just also the important element from Afro-Caribbean aspect, because he's wearing they are wearing a carnival mask
Yeah.
with that, so it's like really to really press the piece on Afro-futurist.
And he, yeah, they are the Afrofuturists. So GNC is a category for everyone. This is like my favorite part about GNC is that anyone can walk this category, and it's a lane that is obviously for non-binary, GNC, gender fluid, however you identify under that umbrella, folks. That's really like how this started, was to make a lane for folks who didn't have one and didn't feel comfortable. But by focusing on expression as the point that it's judged on the clothing and on the style choices that people make, it opens it up to really anybody. So what's cool is that a femme queen could decide to walk this, as long as her look is a clear mix of masculine and feminine, right? So anybody of any identity, cis women could walk this, trans man could walk this, like hopefully we're gonna see Siren in the future walk. So on this next slide, we wanted to show an example of a 90-10 look. And it's kind of what you're seeing right here. It's this Dom Tichy at the Chanel ball not too long ago. Came out for Best Dressed. And when you watch this video, you're going to see Dom walking down the runway, and you're kind of looking and you're like, that's a whole female feminine look. But then Dom turned around and has this whole tie hanging down the back, and it just changed everything. So it was this moment, and Dom won the category, and there were some really amazing looks for this. But I'm gonna show you so you have a sense of kind of like how this goes, where like the judging part of this, like it's undeniably best dressed, like that's a check mark, but is it GNC, right? And then you're watching down the runway and you're like, I don't know. And then as Dom gets closer, turns around, they see it. And Dom gets through for GNC. Now let me unmute here. It's more fun with sound.
Pay close attention to this individual walking, because we're going to speak about it.
In the last one, what were the masculine aspects? Was it the fabric, like the suit kind of fabric?
So tweed is actually it was a masculine thing, but it became a feminine thing. But because of the crop jacket button down aspect of it, although he wore it, or they wore it open, it's still a masculine suiting style for a female figure.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
The collar.
The collars are popped instead of, a traditional button down with a tie.
It's like a trained eye, right? So we're training judges and leadership, or internationally now, on how to look for these things, because they're not used to looking so carefully at the details. And it's choices, right? The folks who are walking these categories now are making very specific stylistic choices. So it adds this really cool creative element to this category, like an extra kind of skill level to be able to put together these pieces in such a way that folks can spot the mixture, but it also can look good together, because you could mix feminine and masculine and it can look like a whole mess, right? Like you could just not be good at making those choices, and so like that's a skill set that you're also bringing to this category, which makes it really exciting in a new and fresh way for ballroom.
And I just want to point out, when we talk about garments that are masculine and feminine, we're talking about traditional
Western culture.
Because in other countries and regions, men naturally do wear skirts. Women naturally do wear button downs. or tunics, which is actually, tunics were actually a male item before it became a female's item. Tunics were worn by,
Heels were also masculine before they
yes,
became
heels and handbags were actually masculine before they became feminine. But in Western culture, those things changed, and we were trained a different way. So we speak on it from the Western culture and the traditional way.
Do you want to talk about the way to write the categories, Siren?
It's so GNC categories should be written appropriately to express a mixed gender. As an effort should be made to write these categories logically so that people walking can present a mixture of both feminine and masculine. So, a perfect example would be bring it in an Oscars-worthy look that breaks the binary. A not so perfect way would be bring it like a Disney princess. Just won't work.
And this happens sometimes with OTA categories?
This does. So a lot of times, OTA, because it's
Open to all.
open to all, which encompasses, so you have runway. So open to all runway might be European, all-American, female figure, male figure, which they really don't do that, because usually when they say male figure, they just mean butch queen, so it's all-American, European. But to kind of keep the standard, the idea, the effect, they would just say, for this OTA runway category, bring it like such and such, and that's it. Well, now when you have a GNC runway category, you can't just write the category like that. You have to think, I have a GNC runway person, so there has to be a way for them to bring it. And what I would like to say is that when we started, we had like a lot of categories that we reviewed. So one thing about us is that we look to see the balls that everyone's talking about, the balls that everyone's going to. We look over those categories for GNC because we want to make sure that people have a fair opportunity to walk, right? If we see a category that's not written right, we reach out to the promoter. And it doesn't have to be us. It can be any of you. If you see a category and you're like, hey, you know what? I know somebody that walks GNC, or maybe I want to walk GNC, but I don't understand this category. Promoters allow you the ability to inbox them and say, hey, I want to walk your wall. I see this category. I'm a little confused. Can you explain it? Or, hey, I'm a GNC individual and I feel like this category is more towards the binary. Can you rewrite it? So it's not just us up here. It takes each and every one of you to kind of push this goal, this dream that we have, right? But a lot of times we haven't really had any pushback. I don't think we've ever had pushback from a promoter. So they're definitely open to changing the category. Why? Because they want somebody to walk. So yeah.
I mean, and it's more exposure for their ball.
More exposure.
It's more exposure for their ball. The more people they have to attend their ball, the more they're inclined to have that ball the next year. And if they have a good turnout, and if everyone that attended thought the ball was good, usually they'll attend the next year. So it's just a matter of creating this cycle and creating this camaraderie where you can continue to build community with the ballroom scene as a promoter that's trying to, throw balls in your region.
Fun stuff. So, I got this question a lot last night, and this was even from judges that we had on the panel. So that lets you know this conversation is ongoing, from legends down to statements and stars, right? Folks can walk multiple labels for one category, including GNC. So this should be a clear distinction. If you're walking drag space, we know that drag space is the illusion of a woman. You should look like a woman. If you're walking GNC face, we know that GNC is a mixed expression of clothing. You should have a mixed expression of clothing. And if you just so happen to be an individual who's multifaceted, because we have such an individual on our team, and they're walking butch queen face, they should look like a butch queen. So that multifaceted individual is Riante LaBeija. Riante walks butch queen face. The first to do all three at that. Butch queen face, GNC face, and drags. So this can be done, but the main thing is to remember that each category has a prerequisite. You have to meet them.
That's Riante in the last one too.
That's Riante in the last one.
And I met Riante, but
And it's the
Ooh.
art of paint, right? Like
Yeah.
it has to be the art of paint for drag, so you better be painted if you're doing faces and drags. GNC is about the clothing. So they may look at the GNC look and be like, if you look neck up, that might be a butch queen, but it's about the clothing.
So I did want to add though, real quick. While I did say it is possible to walk all three categories, I think the most important thing to remember is that you also have to meet the standards of the category.
And that's
The category is face, skin, teeth, nose, structure, eyes. Like the category is face. That's the main thing. So our biggest fight isn't getting people to walk the category. You can walk the category, you meet it. It's getting the judges to understand how to judge it, and then saying, okay, hey, this person coming down the runway, okay, they got the expression part. Now are they the category? So when you see a GNC category, make sure that you meet the prerequisites of the actual category, and then we can talk about the effects.
And you have to always understand that this is a competition space. It's very competitive. You don't go to football practice trying to dunk the football. You don't go to basketball practice trying to kick the ball around. So you adapt to what the competition is first before you decide which type of avenue or category you want to dive into.
We did have a question. I did forget about you.
Yes.
Basically answered it. I was gonna ask what the basis part of GNC is about expression. I wish I could see more the face in the GNC category, but they answered it by saying the face still needs to be on point, regardless of how it looks.
Okay, so remember the individual I told you guys to watch at the end of that video? We're gonna dive into a little bit of that. So GNC was always a part of Ballroom, it just didn't have a defined label until recently. Over the years, many competitors included the present day expectations for the GNC category while walking within their existing lane. Miss Lawrence, which is the individual in the middle who was on that video, has been walking as GNC for a very long time. You may have seen Miss Lawrence on Real Housewives of Atlanta, the show Star, and some other shows. As a butch queen, and actually he played in, what is the movie about, oh my gosh, I can't think of her name. I can't think of her name, the singer, that sings Strange Fruit.
Oh, Naomi.
So
Yeah.
he actually played Billy's friend as a whole male in the Billie Holiday movie.
Was that the one with Anya Day?
Yes, Andrea Day, yes. So he played Billy's friend, the one that, would be at the club with her. But Miss Lawrence, Thaddeus Gorgeous Gucci, and Gunnar Tichy, who actually, until we started doing this work, didn't realize they were GNC.
That's Tom Brown.
No. So Thaddeus actually has on Scaparelli, and he has on all Scaparelli. Miss Lawrence, I think that was custom made, and then Gunnar actually did the repeat of Young Thug's look, album cover look. Yeah.
So, that was actually, there was a lot of moments in that.
I know.
So, remember I talked about how I kind of came into the conversation. This is all in the same time period. We were on Bigo.
This was 2022.
This is 2022. We were on Bigo. I don't even know how I stumbled into the room. I think I just happened to be in Kelly's room that day. But we were on Kelly Gorgeous Gucci's panel, and we were just talking about how possibly we could judge this. And Gunnar was just throwing out ideas of, well, how does this work? And, well, what is GNC? And at some point during that, where we were kind of figuring out what the rubric might be and what GNC actually was, Gunnar had this revelation, was like, oh my God, I think I'm GNC. Like, all of my looks in Ballroom have always been something that wasn't on the binary. They've always been a mixed expression. And that, knowing in that moment, like, Gunnar actually started crying. It was like a whole thing, and he was talking about like how all of his looks have always been this way. He got so much slack for it. And that's another thing that in this walk, it's going to be hard. One thing about Miss Lawrence is that Miss Lawrence has been doing this for years and years, right? And we're all fairly new to this. You're gonna sometimes go down the path of being chopped. Stella went through that, and now Stella's back. And now, when you say GNC Best Dress, let's just be real. You expect to see Stella at the back of the runway. And I've heard that from multiple houses. So if I haven't told you that, I'm telling you that now. But it's one of those things where it is a journey within yourself. And Gunnar had that experience in that moment. It was like all of these years, all of this work, all of the eyes, the questions. This was why I did it. This was really me, and I didn't know this was me. And so it was an amazing thing to see. It also added more to that conversation because after that revelation, it was like, well, if I have been suppressed for all these years, I don't want anybody else to feel that way. And so that just kind of pushed us more to be like, okay, we have to set a standard now. There's no time to delay. Like, let's do it now so that no one else has to feel that way. So yeah.
Yeah. And we just want to point out, that is Miss Lawrence and Gunnar, because of what they had already established in Ballroom, because they have done it for so long. Thaddeus and Miss Lawrence were considered female figures because they had no other lane. The men said no, the stuff they wear is too feminine, and the women were saying, or the femme queens were saying, it's too feminine, like you can't walk with the butch queens. So they created a status, one, because of what they did. Thaddeus is a stylist, Miss Lawrence stylist, hairstylist, and also actor, celebrity. And then Gunnar is just all ballroom. But because of the level that they raised to be in ballroom was like, whatever you do, we can't say nothing about it. Because you have that, you've created that status to just do what you do. And they never had to create their own lane because of their status. But they all recognize us, and we pay homage to them, and they started walking the GNC category to show ballroom what GNC was, and that it has always been there.
And you said it doesn't matter how they identify, it's how they present.
Correct. Because you can't judge a person on how they identify.
In this category. There's too much diversity, because like, there's like a saying in non-binary is that, there's a saying as like for non-binary folks is that like non-binary does not equal androgyny, because people expect androgyny. That's not what the category, the label in everyday society is about. So GNC has been growing in its presence in ballroom. We had I don't know if I took it. Did I take it out? I took it out. There was a list up here of just last year and a couple of years before, but it's actually become more commonplace, like so commonplace. It's a little hard to track how many balls GNC is in now. So we kind of just took the tracking of it away. And instead, we know that at least last year, there were at least 20 balls. Face, Best Dressed, Runway, Performance, and Sex Siren seem to be the most common one, kind of actually in order of most common to least common. Sometimes you get another one being like thrown out there, or there's like an open to all, and then a GNC person will like walk, like you do labels, right? Like.
So I do a category that is Noel evening gown.
Evening gown.
So I usually evening gown was presented for female figures and pageant girls, but I never tell nobody what I can, like, you're not gonna put me in a box. So I was like, let me try this, because I have a lot of gowns in my closet. And I said, well, let me just try this category and see what happens, because for that particular ball, it was GNC person with the most trophies had an additional grand prize, and I wanted that extra $500. So I was like, let me walk this category. And at the time, when I walked that category, it was my very first time, I had some gowns from my client, because I have a client that manufactures gowns. And I did a headpiece, a bag, jewelry, all the, everything. And I walked against a current Miss Continental. And before we went out to walk, I was like, no way these people are gonna vote for me for this. Like, this is Miss Continental. And I beat Miss Continental. And The judges said that, Stella, you had the votes because your gown was tailored to you, and her gown would had some imperfections, and they saw those imperfections. The category is evening gown, so if you're gonna bring an evening gown, you have to make sure all those imperfections are gone. So I won that time. Um, a rivalry of mine in the Gulf Coast, her name is Brianna Ticci. She saw me walk evening gown and said, "Oh no, I won't," because we always have this thing with best dress. And when she saw evening gown, she was like, "Now I want to walk you against you in evening gown." So here we are. I again didn't prepare for it, but I saw that evening gown was on there, and again I wanted more trophies. So a ball came up, and they had the category. I came out first. I had on red and black, and then she came from the back in all red. She came from behind. And she ate me alive. And I told her, I said, "Listen, you got me that time, but the next time, I'll show you." But that shows how much GNC has grown and how ball promoters are allowing GNC individuals to take up space.
Why don't we have pictures of that?
This one has pictures.
I have, so.
As we do this, every time we do this,
Every
we're like,
time
oh,
we-
we gotta add
Yeah,
that, we
the
gotta
more
add
we
that.
do it,
Yeah.
the more we realize what we need to add,
Because we don't talk about all the stories at once. We just, if you follow us on our Ballroom GNC page, we try to document everything there for everyone that's GNC. So let's just say, you attended a ball and you were the only GNC person that walked. You can send it to us directly, or you can post it and tag us, and we make sure that we repost it and then we follow you so we can keep track of what you're doing.
It's a work in progress, yeah. And I'll tell you, it was tough in the beginning. The first year of this, we had to go to each promoter and basically be like, we had to explain what GNC is, say this is why it's needed, and then hope and pray people walked it and understood how to walk it too. So there was a time period where people weren't really walking it because they were like, I don't want to walk that because like people don't understand it, and I'm just gonna get chopped. So it was a slow build towards people trusting that they could walk this, trusting that the judges would know a little bit about it, that it was building and growing, and now it's starting to get there. And you have a question. Yeah.
Okay, I'm a little bit confused, from like GNC, but say with runway, so with runway you have all-American, you have European, and then I saw like, in figure, then like GNC, and I was like, wait, I thought like, yeah.
So, I'm actually glad that we now have Afro. Because for a very long time, we could not figure out like what that would look like. We knew what we wanted it to look like. As someone who walks All-American, I'm pretty much the only one that ever answers that runway question. But because we now have the visual of Afro, when we looked at that look, we saw the mixture of the expression. Afro walks European. So in GNC, when they say GNC runway, that's all it is. If you look like a butch queen outside of that category, that's fine. But in that moment, you are GNC. And that's why we say the category is for everyone. So in that, the first thing that they're looking at is the look a mixed expression? Can they see the masculine and feminine? That's checked off, great. Now it's your walk. Are you European? Are you All-American? Whichever one you choose, can you actually walk? So, like I said, Afro happens to walk European. So once they've got the look out the way, next is, okay, are they walking? Are they crossing over? Are they posing? Great. If I were to walk, it would be the same thing. They would look at my look from head to toe and say, okay, we have to look. Is it all American? So I think that's the beauty of GNC runway is that your look is not tied to what your walk is. In a normal Butch Queen runway category, when you think all American, you see mostly masculinity in an all-American look. And when you look at European, you see mostly feminine in a European look. Now, we do have icons that switch back and forth. They walk all-American and European, and that's amazing. But GNC runway, I think at this moment is the only category where your look does not have to match your runway. So that's the beauty of that.
And we do have some female figures
We do have female figures, a couple of them that walk all American.
We do. We actually have one in the House of West.
Yes.
She walks All American. She actually came out from LSS and did an All American. So it's something that you're starting to see more of. So hopefully we can see them in GNC runway as well. But yeah.
I'm trying to pull up on Instagram for you all, Afro doing runway where they did the change.
Oh, the change.
It was so good. So I'm gonna try to pull that up while we keep going here.
That was
Was it?
It was
No,
best dress.
was it best
It was
dress?
best dress.
It was
Okay, never mind.
But
it
it's
was
still,
cool.
still
It was
a
good
good,
one.
a good idea.
But speaking of Afro, Afro actually founded last year the very first ever GNC focused mini ball in New York for their birthday. So they had it last year, and it's focused on it's around Halloween, so it's like a scary ball, and there's always like monster kind of categories or whatever. This year was villains. So this is making history, right, and building towards something. And this was one of the reasons why we had to ask Afro to be a part of the coalition. And this is just some examples of kind of how far we have reached people. So we did some education with Peru last year. We were reached out to in December to do a Japanese translation of our education. So like you can see, that's one of our slides that you all saw, translated into Japanese. These are just a list of some of the GNC walkers that we know. This is like,
It's probably more
it's probably
than that.
double this list at least now, but these are just some of the folks who've walked since 2022. So a lot of different houses. And one of the things that I find is that if you get a house that has a mother and a father that really support this category, that's where those kids, like, you'll start seeing a lot of them. So like Rayante LaBeija on the West Coast as the mother. We've got a lot of LaBeijas coming out of there, right? Who are GNC, because they're gravitating towards the houses where they know they'll be able to flourish and be supported and walking this category.
And what we find is, as the houses start recruiting new kids that are younger in Ballroom, most of them come in as non-binary individuals. And because we do the education that we do, sometimes the parents or the alliances will reach out and say, hey, we got a lot of kids that's coming in, and it's like a wave of them, like, give us the tools that we need to be able to guide them properly when it comes to GNC. Sometimes they go into Butch Queen, sometimes they go into other things, but if the parents are open, they're going to either reach out to us or they're going to reach out to somebody that knows the information that we put out there. And we try our best to reach every alliance or to reach all individuals that don't really understand what GNC is and how they can train their new child for the category.
Okay, so this is Afrofuturist runway. This is Afrofuturist runway. Oh, it's just a look. I thought it was okay. Yeah.
You need it.
I'm gonna show the best dress. So feminine, 100% feminine here. But then. So they didn't win the battle, but they won the moment.
So something interesting that I did want to say about this, and so this kind of comes with your tenure in Ballroom and your legacy that you build, your reputation, your style, right? That moment couldn't have been done by anybody else. So
Correct.
imagine, remember we said that if someone came out and it was fully femme, they would get chopped, or if they came out and they were fully masked, they would get chopped. Because Afro is known to do things that wow the crowd, the judges, they gave Afro the moment to actually do that, whereas someone else may not have gotten that far. So everything that you do in ballroom, your creativity, you're building
Your brand.
your brand. Like what they know you to do. If they know that you're the type of person that's gonna pull out tricks,
This is runway.
they will give you that opportunity.
This is runway.
But this was,
And they're bizarre, so, they can do a runway with all these bizarre. Those are like non-gender. Alright.
Do you have any idea who made that particular? Did he make it? Does he
They
have
made
a
it.
team?
Yeah, they made it.
Afro is a designer.
Yeah.
They did it themselves.
yeah, but you have to realize Afro's from Brazil, right?
Correct.
From Brazil. So in Brazil, if you've ever watched like pageants, and the way that Brazilians bring pageants, it's a part of their culture to create elaborate costumes like that. Carnival as well.
So yeah, when we do this presentation all over with different regions, we always have some calls to action. We're always asking people, to work with us to continue clarifying the label. So now you're all advocates now. You're all aware. Yeah. Encourage folks that you meet. Explain what it is. If you meet people in ballroom, if you walk at a ball, explain it. If you get chopped, see if you can give some feedback to the judges. You never want to correct, right? We always just come back and we walk again. But you can have conversations about hey, I want to tell you more about what this category is. So educate the judges, commentators. If you're part of a house, educate your house members. Support the category by prepping your members to walk if you are leadership. And include GNC categories at major balls. And we're also include cash prizes, right? We want people to be excited to come out and want to walk them and really make it a competition. One of the things that we've said consistently though, and especially in the beginning when we were starting out, was folks should walk at least one GNC category before they walk for the cash, just to demonstrate that they're not just trying to come in and snatch it and then walk out, right? Because we've had that happen before, or try to happen before anyway. So we can take some questions, we can have a conversation.
Has there been or is there now, maybe I missed it, pushback from the old guard?
Yes.
Absolutely. Even now, it's
Yes.
still,
So when we talk about the pushback, it's because of old ballroom, where it was out of survival mode, and now we're in a space where, yes, we still have to find ways to survive, and we still have to be safe, but now times have changed where we do have the freedom and liberation to come kind of freely be us. And a lot of the elders, as we would say, don't see it that way. It's like if you're gonna go into the world, you better either straighten up or you better make sure that you're cunning enough so you don't get clogged. And the more we continue to talk to them and the more we continue to, ask that they pass the torch, the more they start to gravitate towards what things are doing now. Not all of them, because we have a lot of gatekeepers, but the ones that want to continue to see ballroom grow and progress, they do start to have a different mindset. It's like, okay, I don't understand it, I'll never understand it, but it's here in your ballroom. And especially when we walk, we bring ballroom. It's not like we're coming on the floor and we're giving a mediocre kind of thing. It's us actually coming and competing and showing, everybody that we may not identify or we may not, dress to the standards of the butch queens or the female figures, but we're gonna bring you a presentation that you'll enjoy as well.
You made me think of so many things just now, so like trying to, okay, where do I
Cycle
want
through
to
them.
go? Yeah,
Cycle
okay.
through them.
Yeah, when we started, I mean, Stella and I were probably the most consistent walking for a while, and like that was my thing. My first couple of years was like I personally I'm like whatever about status and like all those things. Like I honestly was in it. Like I just want to get on the floor and show the range of looks and just show what can be done. And so I just tried to walk as much as I could because there wasn't a lot of people walking. And I feel like it was like the same thing for you. You were just like trying to come back and show them, no, like this is GNC, this is GNC Best Dress. Come on.
Yeah. I think I'm the only GNC person that has been chopped the most. I received the most chops out of everyone.
India might disagree
I think
with you,
India might
actually.
disagree.
Well, this is true. India probably is,
India left mainstream and went to Kiki.
Yeah,
I think because of the number of times she got.
but it was the gatekeepers that was like, we don't see it, we don't care for it. I remember walking the ball in Detroit, and a pillar that they brought in to sit on the panel, I'm gonna say maybe 75 years old. And I walked for GNC Best Dress, and they said, what is that? What is that? And I just took it with, a grain of salt. And I said, I'm GNC Best Dress. And she says, oh, honey, you don't, oh, honey, you don't give me something that I want to lay down with. Because, those were the type of things that happened back in the days for butch queens. And I said, well, that's okay, but I'll be back again. And it's those things that and that's why we do it. Because you may not see it, because you may see, oh, well, you got this full beard and, you got on a heel, but like, you need to be a butch queen. And it's not about what you want me to be. It's about what I feel and how I desire to present myself. Fast forward to, just walking in the Gulf Coast. There were some people that just like, GNC, no, don't want to be a part of it, don't want to hear anything about it. Now I've had the luxury to be a part of the alliance where they say, anybody have questions about GNC, because we have Stella on the line, and a GNC person may have an issue or anything regarding GNC. Stella is on the line. Let Stella teach you guys about what GNC looks like and how you can navigate through those things.
J-Rock is a big supporter.
And J-Rock, who was the commentator last night, is a huge supporter of GNC. J-Rock is one of the individuals that gave me my first LSS. J-Rock is the first individual that in the Gulf Coast pulled me to the side and said, Stella, you have to show them and tell them, and we'll have some conversations about what GNC is, because they want to learn, but they don't know what it is and how to judge it. And everywhere J-Rock goes, when he sees a GNC person, he makes sure he recognizes that GNC person, and he makes sure the panel judges them fairly.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, the reason why we created this space, why we submitted for this workshop this year, to focus on GNC, is at the end of the Ballroom 101 session we did last year, before the ball, we had some folks in the audience who were giving us pushback, right? Like talking about femme queen identity and being a trans woman, and how like that's really sacred and that this is confusing things, and right? So it's the conversations actually that are happening outside of Ballroom too, around non-binary identity, the rejection of, these kids who think they can just do and swear and be anything, and now that's threatening, who I am as a trans woman. And it's like, you get to be exactly who you are, and we get to be who we are over here, right? Everybody has a space and a place without taking away from somebody else on this earth. And it's the same thing in Ballroom, right? There's some feelings about this. There's some feelings about like, I had to work so hard to become this woman and be seen that way. And now you're saying there's a lane where you could do whatever you want. What is this, right? So we're working with people to help them understand it's like both in ballroom, but also what this is outside for people, and that we can all exist. And I was gonna talk about realness as well, because we talked about realness yesterday. And a lot of times we get this question of like, well, like, what is GNC realness? And it's like, well, no, you wouldn't do that. Because realness is about conforming to straight cis society, and GNC is about non-conforming to straight cis society. So there's no way to judge JNC like a realness. That doesn't make any sense. They're actually completely antithetical to each other. So we've seen the Kiki scene try to do GNC realness, and like it's just even there they have a tough time with it. Like, how do you judge it? What does this even mean? And you can't tell who's identifying and who's not. And then you have people who identify as non-binary. They don't actually identify as GNC. So like, are they really GNC then when they walk GNC in the Kiki scene for realness? If they identify as non-binary, like so it's like this whole thing.
Their whole thing in the Kiki scene, the way they judged it, and so this was the thing that made it problematic. So the Kiki scene, I hate when people say like the Kiki scene it's a Kiki, it's not serious, because the thing about it is some of our greatest talent in mainstream come from the Kiki scene. So it is a real thing, it is a big deal, it is just as competitive as mainstream. However, when it comes to GNC categories, because that was the first place that it came about, there's a leniency that exists within the Kiki scene. And so their idea of realness was, it doesn't have to be butch queen executive realness. It's just executive realness. We're just gonna judge them because they look like they're executives. But here's the problem with that. That's great for the Kiki scene. That's still not realistic for mainstream, because in mainstream's competitiveness, you're basically saying, well, because realness was thrived under survival, and I think that's another reason why that category doesn't actually work. It's because in the Kiki scene, it's just about allowing people to walk it. But in mainstream, the history of realness was based off of survival. So when you take a category that you have made a Kiki in the Kiki scene, and then try to move it to mainstream where that category itself has ties to what has allowed people to survive, it changes how important that category really is. That's another reason why we don't advocate.
And that's where the gatekeepers come in.
Yeah.
Because we will never take anything away from what they did for us.
That's why we won't do GNC.
And that's why we
exactly
won't
why
do
we won't.
To
GNC.
honor that.
To honor that. We're asking them to allow us to be us. And they're asking us, don't take away what we fought for. Blood, sweat, tears, lives. In the day, and Penelope has talked about this, when the AIDS epidemic was huge. In order to walk on the street, in order to possibly get some type of treatment, you couldn't just be a GNC person, because they want to know, well, are you a male or are you a female? Because insurance purposes, they had to put that. And still today, those are things that's very important. And we do what we do so people can live day to day freely as them. But you have the minor leagues and you have the major leagues.
Mm-hmm.
When you come into the major leagues, you have to be prepared to give what the major leagues is requiring you to give. Competition. And you have to be able to conform to ballroom. Not to identity, but to ballroom.
And this is what it's been working with leadership from the start. That's why we've always sat down with leadership, because it needed to be done in tandem. We weren't gonna come in and just make a category and say this is what it is. So it got to this point for that reason.
You had a question?
I just want, because I'm not too sure about, but I'm getting from context the difference clarification between Kiki, LSS, mainstream. Y'all can just give me like a broad.
Okay.
Non-acronym.
So LSS is legends, statements, stars.
Before you go past that, break down what those are.
Oh, I'm about to. Don't you worry. So Legends is more so your people who have been walking those categories, dominating those categories. They've done the work. When you think of a category, you think of them. So when you think of Femme Queen Face, you think of Temperance, as a Chanel, as a Margiela. Every house that she's been in, she's been a force, right? When you think of Runway, you think of people like legendary Corey Lambert, European Runway. Like you have, like when you say a category, you think of the person who is most notarized. So any category can be like when you think about transparent realness, you think of Shady Prada, you think of Sean Coleman, Sean Ebony, Chill Ebony, Stone Cold. That if you came to the keyboard, yesterday, he was on the panel. Like those names that are relevant to those categories, that's what solidifies you as a legend when you get that title. Statements, that's the person that's they're making their way. Like right now,
5 to 10 years.
like 5 to 10.
I'm like,
I
I'm
wouldn't
like a
even-
statement.
Sometimes
So no, the
this-
statements have went to 3 to 5
Yeah,
years.
it's sometimes you have people who become statements within their first 2 years because it's really how much of a force are you on that floor. With GNC, the exception of GNC, think about it. Like if we were to just go back to 2022, the work that you, Stella, Briante, even Afro, y'all are statements. It didn't take 5 to 10 years. It's literally how consistent you've been on the floor. That is what makes you a statement. And then a star. You could be within Ballroom your first year, but if you've been hitting the floor, traveling
like
state to
Afro's first
state,
year.
winning, basically Afro is star statement at this point. But that's just based off of the work that you put in on the floor. So that's LSS, and LSS is done at the beginning of the ball to acknowledge those that come in. I know that there's a lot of like fleck about LSS because you have people that sit in eyes and like, I should be getting an LSS. You gonna get what the commentator does. You know, if the MC sees you and they're like, oh yeah, this one, yeah, we gonna call her out. It's not a, it's a privilege.
Yeah, it's not a I want to be seen.
Yeah, it's not a I want to be seen. It's a privilege to be given that type of call out. So this is why you see some individuals that get LSSs and some don't. It's not shade to them either, but you know.
So Kiki versus.
Now Kiki versus mainstream is just basically, I can't even really explain what Kiki and versus mainstream is because there's so many different ideas of what Kiki was. Some people say it's youth, but I think it's based off of region.
It's a learning process for mainstream.
It's a learning. I believe the Kiki scene is a learning process for those that want to go into mainstream. It's the battleground. Yeah,
It's
the training.
academy.
Yeah, it's like the academy for mainstream ballroom. It's where you get to learn about what ballroom is.
Which J-Rock founded.
And
Yes.
So there's actually been Kiki houses and Kiki leadership that's reached out to us because they want to align GNC now to the mainstream standards. So we've actually started having those conversations where we're always like upfront, like, y'all, this is your thing. You decide how you want to do this, but this is how we do it. And so when you have people that move over from Kiki to mainstream, they're gonna have to figure it out and align themselves to the standards for mainstream. So like, it's in your best interest to start figuring it out in the Kiki scene and walking that way. But we're not gonna tell you to do that. We have no authority. We're not some, you know, some large body that's telling people what to do. We're just a bunch of advocates, right?
But I mean, I think that pretty much sums up. Like I said, with Kiki across just regions, I'd just like to say that like Kiki is another subversion of mainstream. The region that you live in determines how competitive it is, how youthful it is, and who's actually engaged. So let's just say it's the same level of skill required for mainstream, just a little bit more leeway.
Would they still have LSS?
Yes.
Yes.
They do, yeah.
So they have LSS
Yeah.
as well.
They're just at the beginning of every ball to just bring attention to who's in the
So
room.
just pretty much everything that happens.
And mainstream happens in the Kiki scene. So they have an LSS. They have stars, statements, legends, icons, Hall of Famers.
Princes and princesses in the house.
Yeah, they have. Instead of mother, I mean they have mothers and fathers. But in Kiki scene, you'll find that they have a prince and a princess of the house. But essentially, the rubric or the blueprint is about the same as mainstream.
So we got a wrap because technically this ended at 4:45, but we're obviously here to continue to chat. Did you want to say something, Penny? Okay, so Penny's gonna wrap up for us. Thanks, Penny.
Hello everyone, my name is Penelope and one of the co-founders of the Agents of Change Ball. What I want to say is even I'm sitting here and I want to thank all three of you You know, and I'm like Rikka, my sibling, like no doubt, right? And as you were talking, Stella, that's my baby. I'm trying to figure you out, Siren. Don't worry, we'll work that out, familia. But what I want to say though is that as someone who started Ballroom back in the 90s and in like the height of the pandemic, it was the old guard, los fundamentos of ballroom, the fundamentals of ballroom, the importance of keeping the oral tradition more so, and the practice, and yes, survival, but also at the same time, avoiding the erasure. I think today, the pushback of elders is not just about, oh, you gotta do it like we did. But I think it's more of like erasure.
It's like a trauma
It's
response.
just
Or being
trauma
forgotten.
response, that's
Being
right. And I
Because the
have to
Bush Beans came in.
that's right, and I have to include myself in that, because I think that it's had been a blessing. There's a reason why we're all connected, definitely a reason why. And in that, I want to say that this year is one of the first times. It started last year as well, from a very GNC perspective, the most comfortable I've been hitting the runway. And not just, I have to think about accessibility and you know, my heels can't be fucking 6-inch stilettos and platforms like back in the day, you know what I'm saying? But, you know, I'm working it out. But what I've appreciated so greatly is that I didn't have to conform and be dictated like back in the day. Well, you need to wear this gown. Oh, one year I was like, we need to see tits. I want to see tits. And what bothered me is the sexism, again, the heteronormativity of shit. I'm gonna get too academic here, but at the same time, forced heteronormativity of things has really not allowed us to really think through critical thinking of what the fuck we're saying and what we're conforming to. Whereas my appreciation of all of you, because the old guard is recognizing that there's some shit that they gotta really look at, because that armor ain't as bulletproof, because we have to look at the change from within. I'm the most comfortable walking because I was wearing a fucking pair of pants, okay? And that my idea of comfortability and hitting the runway has been very masculine and feminine. Cause I go to work in fucking pantsuits and high heels and shit and feel like I'm a badass bitch, but I'm feeling like that masculine energy does manifest for me, right? Fucking love it. And I wanna thank you all for that. And I definitely wanna continue working with you all and learning and being familia. But from that perspective, I just wanna say, as an older person, thank you, because you're changing shit, right? Fundamentos, you're still maintaining la tradiciones, the tradition, right? But it's new and it's different, but it's part of transition, because we do have to change. And we're not erasing ballroom, we're keeping the same foundation of things, but we're coming in with that in the way in which that we're looking at the world differently. It wasn't like it was 10, 20 years ago. We got prep today, okay? We ain't got a cure yet, but fuck it, we got prep. Thank goodness. But keep bringing it the way you're bringing it. Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you all so much. It was such a nice little intimate conversation. Thanks for staying for the whole thing. And yeah, we're here for a few more minutes if you want to chat. Appreciate you.